Hey guys, political video for you tonight. So the DNC email hacks and the Podesta emails and Russia's alleged involvement with such is a topic that I've been talking about since before Election Day. But I've mostly been discussing this in comments. I haven't really dedicated a video to that subject. And I'm going to go ahead and do so now because on my most recent video, The Truth About CNN reporter Sarah Gainham, hashtag BLM kidnapping laugh, it is not what you think, I got this comment down here from somebody named Gerald Legault, and he says, nice video, but what do you think about this? And he shares a link to an article about, and this is not the article, by the way, this is just a visual aid, to an article about President Obama's December 29th executive order, which basically is some Russian economic sanctions in response to the CIA Grizzly Steppe report, where they pretend like they have a smoking gun that proves that the Kremlin was behind these email hacks, even though of course they really don't. By the way, look at Obama's face right here. Is this not the face of a petulant child who's had his toys taken away? Like, that is the face of butthurt right there. He really wanted his pal Hillary Clinton to win, and she just didn't. I'm sorry, Barack. Anyway, so here's what I replied to Gerald Legault. I said, it's just Obama having a tantrum and taking a dig at Russia because he knows they helped Trump win. I do absolutely believe that the Kremlin was behind the DNC hacks, by the way. I just don't give a flying fuck. Good for the Kremlin. Since when does sharing information with American voters so that they can make an informed choice count as election tampering or undermining our democracy? If that is how it works, then every act of journalism would be an act of domestic terrorism. And Gerald Legault replied saying, well, that's honestly something I never thought about when it comes to hacking, but where does WikiLeaks fall? Well, WikiLeaks is just WikiLeaks. They're just doing what they do. They're doing what they have done since their inception, which is to host leaked material. They're providing a place for leaked material to go. Now, of course, there is something kind of disingenuous about Julian Assange doing interviews and saying, well, I have no personal stake in any of this. I'm just doing my job. All we do is receive leaks. We vet them to make sure that they're legit, and then we put them up there. Of course Julian Assange has an agenda. For him to say that he doesn't, it's just kind of disingenuous. There's plenty of bad blood between Julian Assange and Hillary Clinton. So, yeah, of course he has his motivations, but so what? I mean, everybody's getting hung up on the wrong thing when it comes to these email hacks, and it's been that way since the start. So much of the attention has been diverted away from the fact that there were shady goings-on in the DNC. I mean, isn't that what we should be all focused on? And yet, we're focused on everything but. Was WikiLeaks right in publishing this information? Where did the information come from to begin with? What was it the Kremlin behind it? These are not the things we should be focused on. And yet we are. And I guess I'm going to just kind of pour gasoline on that fire with this video. So, Sargon of Akkad did a live stream recently where he and his pals kind of debunked the CIA's claims that there's a smoking gun, essentially, that the Kremlin is behind these hacks. And I'm no computer security expert. Okay, the extent of my computer expertise is I can program in HTML, and I used to do a little VBasic coding back in the 90s. That's about it. I'm no computer security expert. However, I do know the CIA, and I do know that they're not exactly the most trustworthy guys. I mean, propaganda is part of their mandate. This is what they do. The CIA has three essential functions. Okay, so number one, they gather intelligence, most often through clandestine means, hence being called the clandestine services. Number two, they perform black ops. And such as toppling foreign governments, such as conducting torture operations in South and Central America, and number three, propaganda. Propaganda is what they do. This is part of their function, and now with the National Defense Authorization Act, the prohibition against them conducting domestic propaganda against the American people has been removed. So when they do things like release a report claiming to prove conclusively that, hey, it was the Russians behind this and they interfered with our electoral process, well, you'd have to be a fool to just take anything the CIA says at face value. They're the fucking CIA. They are, propaganda is their job. This is their function. However, that having been said, do I believe that the Kremlin was behind the DNC hacks? Absolutely. To quote Cenk Uygur, of course. I mean, let's just look at this logically. Russia had the means, the motive, and the opportunity. Who else would have done it? And of course they fucking did it. Consider the fact that as soon as Donald Trump was the presumptive GOP candidate, Vladimir Putin was already giving interviews endorsing Donald Trump. Now, there's no mystery about this. If the choice is between a candidate like Hillary Clinton with hawkish foreign policy positions, and openly stated belligerence towards Russia, and the woman who takes great pride in having destabilized Libya, if the choice is between that and a candidate like Donald Trump, who talks about renewing relations with Russia, and shouldn't we get along, and someone who's openly critical of NATO, why wouldn't Vladimir Putin do anything and everything within his power to help Donald Trump get elected? If this only makes sense. But the question that I pose to my fellow Americans is why should we care? Why should this bother us in the slightest if Russia was getting involved? And for the Obama administration to be using the language they are when it comes to this issue, they're saying things like Russia has undermined our democracy and that they have interfered with our electoral process. Well, how rich is that coming from this administration? I mean, isn't this the administration that funneled $5 million of State Department money through various NGOs to seed a coup in Kiev, toppling if that's not undermining democracy, what is? Isn't this the same administration that's trying to overthrow whether you like it or not, the democratically elected Assad regime in Syria? Okay, so interfering with democracy is what this administration has been doing from the get-go. So there's just something really outrageous about them calling foul at the suggestion that Russia hacked some emails. And the language they're using and the way they're framing this, interfering with our electoral process. Well, to hear language like that, you would think that Russia was hacking our voting machines and changing people's votes. That's not what they did. What they did is expose malfeasance within the DNC. They've exposed criminal activity perpetrated by Hillary Clinton. That's not interfering in an electoral process. That's called journalism. That's muckraking journalism. Okay, so I suppose Vladimir Putin is like the Woodward and Bernstein here. He's merely informing the American voter so that we can make an informed choice at the polls, and that's it. That doesn't quite meet the definition of interfering with an electoral process. Okay. So, bottom line, should we believe the CIA when they tell us there's proof that Russia was behind the hacks? Absolutely not. There is no proof, and these sanctions, which I think technically they are illegal sanctions, but that's certainly nothing new coming from the White House. They are certainly untoward. They're certainly unseemly in light of the fact that there's no smoking gun. There's no concrete proof that the Russians did this. However, that being said, I, for one, absolutely believe that the Kremlin was behind these hacks. And I don't care. I'm actually grateful to the Kremlin for picking up the slack of a complicit U.S. Mainstream media that doesn't feel like reporting news is part of their job anymore. The way I feel is like, thank God someone is informing us about what's going on. And if it has to be Russia, so be it. And I felt this way for quite a while. I mean, this is why I watch RT. Because you have to get real journalism from somewhere. And I'd much rather buy American. I'd much rather if my journalism be made in the USA, made with pride in the USA, right? But if it can't be, if I have to go to Al Jazeera to get the news, so be it. And I'll take the facts from anyone who's willing to give them to me. And, so bottom line, do I think Russia was behind the hacks? Yes. Do I care? Absolutely not. I'm grateful to them for doing this. So that's all the news that's fit to print. Keep it fake.